Containing strong language, the inside story of a supergrass.
Last year, Supergrass Darren Nichols agreed to take part in an inside story about the murder of 3 Essex drug dealers. But on the night of the intended broadcast, Nichols, fearing he might be recognised, obtained an injunction to stop the programme being transmitted. A High Court judge overruled the injunction and agreed with the BBC that Nichols could not be identified from the film. However, the Court of Appeal later agreed with Nichols and reversed this decision. The film you're about to see is identical to the original, except that actors now play the parts and speak the words of Darren Nichols and his wife.
People I aimed to stitch up because I thought they was going to kill me. I stitched them up. I put them away. I'm Charlie with Taters of Supergrasses in a minute. Out of all the ones in the system, I'm the tops. I'm considered to be a major witness, and the police really do feel that everybody wants me dead.
Police have launched a murder inquiry after 3 men were found shot dead in Essex. A farmer discovered the bodies this morning in a Range Rover parked on a farm track near Chelmsford.
There are 3 men dead in a Range Rover. It is horrendous.
The 3 dead men were known criminals. Patrick Tate, Craig Rolfe and Anthony Tucker. All 3 had convictions from drug dealing to armed robbery.
3 men assassinated with pump-action shotguns, each murdered in cold blood with bullet wounds to the head.
This was drugs-related, and it was a professional job. The latest narcotics-linked crime in Essex, a county which has become high-profile in the ruthless world of drug trafficking.
This lane, as you can see, is isolated. It's more or less hidden totally from any other houses. It's in rural countryside. And you've got to imagine this lane would have been pitch black.
On December the 7th, 1995, Detective Superintendent Ivan Dibley was called to the scene of a murder. Drug dealers Pat Tate, Tony Tucker and Craig Rolfe had been executed in a Range Rover at the end of this farm track in Rettendon, Essex.
The weather conditions were changing and I could see the frost was lifting, and with that, clearly the evidence was melting before our eyes. But more importantly than that, I was thinking, you know, where do we start? Here we have 3 men, probably the most serious murder that Essex has ever had, in the middle of nowhere, with what chance of finding a witness? I could see this blue Range Rover. It was parked just a few yards ahead of where we are now, and it was quite misted up inside the Range Rover. The windows were misted, and the reason for that, I think, was because it was a very cold day. The warmth of the bodies of these 3 men was actually creating a sort of a misty atmosphere in the car, which was a little bit bizarre. And I could see in the Range Rover, Rolfe was sitting at the driver's wheel, holding the steering wheel. He actually had his foot on the brake and looked to all intents and purposes as if he was waiting at red traffic lights before proceeding again. I walked round the Range Rover, and in the front passenger seat there was a second person dead, who I now know to be Tucker. He also had been killed very quickly and was taken by surprise. I then moved to the back of the car, and in the rear passenger seat, literally laying back with his head against the window, which was smashed, was Tate. We decided that we would remove this Range Rover, lock, stock and barrel, on the back of a low loader and take it somewhere that was dry and safe before attempting to take the bodies from the car.
The police had no leads, but 6 months later, the killer's getaway driver, Darren Nichols, decided to turn Supergrass. Nichols is now in hiding with a new name under police protection.
On the night of the murder, I presumed I was just a driver for a drug deal. I was driving Jack to the lane where Mick would turn up with the others in a Range Rover. And when they completed their deal, I picked a pair of them up. When I was phoned up to come back and pick them up, I just drove into the lane, turned the car around, faced it back towards the road. Jack got in the car and sat in the back. And then all of a sudden, the door opened, Mick got in. The interior light came on, and I was talking to Jack. And at that moment, I noticed Jack had white gloves on, covered with blood. And Mick said, "Come on, get going." I started to pull away, and Mick started passing like the barrels of the gun over to Jack. And I was thinking, fucking hell, what's gone on here? Mick said, "They won't fuck with us again." And I realised that something had happened. Obviously, I think I knew that someone had been killed. I don't really remember a lot about the journey. The journey, as far as I'm concerned, passed in 2 seconds, you know? It was probably half an hour, but it passed in 2 seconds. Don't really recall a lot of it. Just couldn't comprehend what had been done. Apparently their faces were just hanging off their heads. Just tried to forget it. Just went into the pub, drank a severe amount of drink, went home, went to bed, got up, went to work, and I suppose I was trying to forget about it, but there was no way.
Tonight, the men who gunned down 3 drugs dealers in cold blood are behind bars.
Michael Steele, who dubbed himself the Angel of Death, was given 3 life sentences. He's said to have laughed uncontrollably after killing the men. Also given the same sentence, Jack Wombs, his right-hand man. The pair were trapped by Darren Nichols, the driver of the killer's getaway car, who turned supergrass.
Darren Nichols spent a year on remand while waiting to give evidence at the trial. It was his testimony at the Old Bailey that clinched the case against his friends Mick Steele and Jack Wombs.
At the trial, I tried not to look at Wombs and Steele. They scared me. You know, because what I'm doing to them. And I know how much they hate me. I don't think I'll ever be rid of them. Mick Steele, because he's quite old, and hopefully he'll die in prison. And Jack, hopefully, when he gets out, he'll be older and wiser, and just gets on with his life, rather than trying to avenge me. Probably his family I'm more worried about than him.
If this justice, what happened beyond reasonable doubt, I reckon go like that, because that's to say the trial with Jack Wombs and Michael Steele. What's that say? And then this one starts off with a bit of the judge's summing up. You know, where it says there is no forensic evidence, nothing connecting with the scene. The whole case hinges on the evidence of one man, Darren Nichols.
The family of Jack Wombs, one of the convicted killers, are mounting a campaign to prove his innocence. They're waiting for leave to appeal against his conviction.
We all had those sort of schoolmates at school that used to sit and tell porkies all the time, and we used to get fed up with them after a while, you know. And that's a Darren, you know.
Like the police admit, without Darren Nichols, there's nothing, because there was no forensic, nothing to connect him with the murder, and that was all seen in court. But because Darren Nichols say that he was the driver, the jury believed that he was the driver, and therefore convicted my brother of triple murder.
Darren knows what to do. Darren knows what to do. We haven't got to keep telling him. No one's got to keep telling him. Darren knows what to do.
My brother Bubsy, Jack, he said he called Darren a liar. He said, "You liar," and cocky Darren went, "Am I?" Like that. How many times did he change his statement for the murder?
20 or
26 times.
28 statements in full.
Because he didn't know if they had Wellingtons on, then it went from boots to Wellingtons, didn't it?
Yeah.
Overalls to tracksuit bottoms and...
If it was straightforward and he just all of a sudden confessed to this, Darren Nichols, why did he have all the luxuries in his cell when he's on remand? There was us behind glass on our visits to my son. He had a cell with a luxury proper bed in it, for starters, computer, a desk, a Game Boy thing to play on, a multi-gym. He had so much stuff in it to give him home comforts that they couldn't shut the cell door.
In a sense, I feel sorry for the man, because obviously he's messed up his life as well, hasn't he? He's got to live, well, scared for the rest of his life, so they say in the paper, but he ain't got to be scared of us, because like I say, we don't want nothing to happen to him, because I'm hoping, personally, that one day he will come forward.
Darren Nichols, we need alive. We need alive. And if you come face to face when someone was going to kill Darren Nichols, you'd have to protect him. We'd have to protect him. Because we need him alive. Because it is the only evidence. The only evidence there is.
If they go to another appeal, and their appeal gets squashed, I'm particularly worried about the Wombs family. No one likes the truth, especially the families of the people that did it. So it's something they've got to come to terms with, not me.
A number of people are saying that the story given by Darren Nichols was made up, and clearly some people have a vested interest in breaking his story down to be a tissue of lies. It would be almost impossible for somebody like Darren Nichols to actually make up the detail that he gave in court. He told the truth as he saw it on what had occurred at Rettendon that night.
Hello? Oh, is that you, Bud? You alright?
Yeah, I'm alright.
Yeah, what you been up to? Anything today? Not working?
Huh?
You're not working today?
No, I wish I was.
I will send you them photos, Babs, that I said about.
Jack Wombs speaks to his mother Pam from Whitemore Prison in Cambridgeshire.
We're doing all we can to get you out, aren't we? Aye. So.
It's just convincing these judges, isn't it? And
Yeah.
it just kept changing from day to day. It weren't like, 1 month of that charge and another month of that charge.
No.
It was just all over the show.
Yeah.
And I hope we're going to get into this appeal court and get the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
I hope it's going to
I hope so.
Concentrate on the issue.
Yeah.
Why? The motive is the main thing. Can I hear you, Mum? You there?
Yeah.
Oh, what you...
I was listening to you. I was letting you let off steam. We're trying to get your innocence over, Babs. You know what I mean? If you can... Well, I know you can't. We've all racked our brains and that, but...
I've said it enough times, haven't I?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to keep going on and on about it.
No. I don't let you get you down.
Well, I don't.
Aye.
Yeah.
You know? And that... Better change the subject or ring off. How many phone cards have you got there? Babs, you alright? Oh what?
Phone back later.
Alright, Babs. Phone back at 2 o'clock, alright? Don't get upset, Babs. We'll help you. We'll get you out. Babs.
Is he upset today, Mum? You're all right.
Doesn't matter who the mother is, they always love their offspring dearly and would go to extraordinary lengths to try and help them out of a difficult situation. And I think Mrs. Wombs is no different to any other mother faced with this, and she's trying desperately hard to help her son, and I think it would help her considerably if he told her the truth.
We'll get him out. Main thing. Go look.
I hate it.
Ain't
Some, yeah, it's fine. But some days he's all right, and then some days he ain't. I can't cope with it. I make out that I do. I mean, I try not to let him know. You know what I mean? That no, I don't know what I'm talking about now. It just does me up. I'll be all right in a minute. I'll pull myself together and I'll have me fighting irons on again, I reckon. But he just throws me.
In 1992, Darren Nichols was sentenced to 3 years in prison for dealing in counterfeit money. Whilst at the Hoasley Bay prison in Suffolk, he met Mick Steele, who was coming to the end of a 9-year stretch for smuggling cannabis.
When I got out of prison, I didn't expect to hear from anyone again. And when I did hear, it was Mick Steele. Someone he wanted to smuggle with him was locked up. And I think he needed someone else, and he asked me. The bloke was absolutely brilliant. I mean, everything he did. I mean, like an engineer. He was a brilliant engineer. I mean, I couldn't understand really why he broke the law. And when I first agreed to smuggle, I didn't give it a second thought whatsoever. I just did it, because he asked me to.
Also at Hoseley Bay Prison with Darren Nichols and Mick Steele was Jack Wilms. He was serving 16 months for car fraud.
I mean, I know all along, Jack, if he was up for anything, Jack would have been his second man, because him and Jack were like dead pally. Jack loved Mick. Jack would do anything for Mick. Jack really admired him, you know, looked up to him. Me and Mick Steele started smuggling cannabis across the channel. We get the ferry, we go across overnight, we get there in the morning, we buy the drugs, we do the deal. I'd go off and rent a car, bring the car back, drugs were put in the boot. I'd drive us all the way back to Blankenberg in Belgium. We wait for sort of dusk, just like early evening, 5 or 6 o'clock time, and we get the drugs down on the beach. We contact Mick, who's come over in a boat. The drugs go in the boat, the drugs go off to England. When Mick got back to England, Jack Wilms would be waiting for him. He would take the drugs off him and go and hide the drugs. Mick would go back to sea, re-land somewhere else, been fishing, prove otherwise.
Yet another inmate at Hoseley Bay Prison was one of the murder victims, Pat Tate. He was in the same block as Darren Nichols, Mick Steele and Jack Wilms.
Whilst inside, Pat supplied cannabis to people who wanted it, and steroids. He used to get it brought in on visits, sneaked in. I mean, people never really searched Pat. He was too big.
People do drugs in prison. I mean, things are so easy to get in there. And he got hooked on smack in there, heroin. When he wasn't doing any drugs at all, he was just a lovable rogue, and he'd like, if he sold you a car and there was something wrong with it, that was down to you, because everybody knew that that's the way Pat was, you know, and it's your tough when if he sells you the car and it's wrong. But he got away with it because he was so lovable.
Come on, Pat, let's have a smile.
Pat Tate, along with Tony Tucker and Craig Rolfe, the 3 victims of the Range Rover murders, were major drug dealers in Essex.
When he got into the drugs, Pat just got into the underworld, just wanting to earn so much money and to be like the mafia, I suppose.
Tate and Tucker and Rolfe, they had the ability and the outlets in the Essex Police District and probably further afield in the East End of London to distribute drugs. And so the 2 factions, if you like, found common ground with each other. Steele had the ability to import the drug, and Tate and his associates had the ability to distribute it.
Tucker, Tate and Rolfe, well, more Tucker and Tate. Rolfe was just sort of, I suppose, the equivalent of me with Steele. He was just their boy. Everyone knew them as violent, and when they were selling drugs, they were too loud, too high profile, and they didn't care. If anyone, like, made any comments, they used to just beat them up. And that concerned, like, Mick Steele, who I worked for, because they were attracting too much of attention. And it was only a matter of time before they, like, attracted the attention onto us and, like, and got us nicked. When we went smuggling for the 3rd time, everything went wrong from the start.
Michael Steele had brought over a consignment of cannabis in a boat from Holland, landing on the Essex coast. But the cannabis was said to have been of a very bad quality, and there were soon complaints from customers and dealers who demanded their money back. Patrick Tate in particular was seething with anger about the problems with the cannabis.
Pat Tate had borrowed 40,000 off some gangsters and promised them 50,000 back. Once Pat didn't get any profit because the drugs were bad, he needed something to tell the gangsters. He devised a little story where he said, "We haven't got any money back. Mick Steele, the bastard, hasn't paid us," he said. And furthermore, he said, "If he doesn't pay us, I'll kneel him down and shoot him in front of you." But Tate, with a big mouth, told too many people, and it got back to Mick. I knew that's when Mick decided to set him up and kill him.
I am angry with him for getting involved in the drugs. He's not just hurt himself, he's hurt everyone around him. It should never have happened. Never in a million years. No one deserves to die, especially the barbaric way they did.
I decided I wouldn't smuggle anymore after the murders, and I told Mick Steele I no longer wanted to smuggle, but I was quite happy to purchase drugs just for my friends and that, you know? and never had nothing to do with smuggling, because I don't know if it was my own personal fears, and they realised I'm a weakling, but they got more friendly towards me, wanting to do things with me, like wanting to go flying. Like Mick offered to take me flying and was egging me on to come flying. And he was betting me that I couldn't identify my town for where I lived from an aeroplane and things like that. And I said, of course I could. And then when he turned up for me to go flying, he had Jack with him. And he says, right, Jack can sit in the back. And I thought, there's no fucking way I'm going up in an aeroplane with those two.
The men arrived at intervals during the day at Chelmsford Magistrates Court. First to arrive was Michael Steele, aged 53, from Great Bentley. His application for bail was turned down by magistrates. Next was Jack Wones, aged 35, from Brockford in Suffolk. His bail application was also turned down. There was no bail application for Darren Nichols.
The three were all arrested for drug offences, but within 3 days, on May the 16th, 1996, Steele and Wones were charged with murder. Darren Nichols had turned supergrass. He was kept out of the prison system, but detained in isolation in a police cell.
If I hadn't grasped, without a doubt, I would be dead. If I had kept my mouth shut, gone into the prison system, I would have died in prison. It's not that I think I would have died. I would have died. I would not be here now. I would be dead. They would have found some 18-year-old who wanted to earn half ounce of dope, who would have stabbed me in the showers, mate. I've been in prison. I've been on remand. You upset someone, you may only end up with 50 stitches. You may end up a bit worse off than that. They're always at it, and the worst ones of all is someone who thinks you're a grass. They'll catch you. They all have a go. They all want to stick the knife in together.
Must have been about midnight. Got a phone call from Darren. All he said was, do you want to be with me? I said, well, yeah, of course I do. I mean, why? What's happened? He wouldn't tell me anything, about what was going on. He just kept repeating, do you want to be with me? Do you want to be with me? Pack a few things in a bag. Just an overnight bag for you and the kids. Well, I just wanted to know why and, what was happening. He said, I can't talk, I can't tell you anything. Just do as I ask and it'll be all right. So, I did as he said, packed a bag. At the time I thought, probably not coming back here. I don't know how I knew that I wouldn't be going back, but I just knew I wouldn't be going back. Police turned up sometime later. Children were asleep in bed. So I had to lift them out of bed and put them in the back of a car. Can't remember what I told them. Can't remember what I said about where we were going or why. But they were so sleepy, they didn't seem to take much notice.
A lot of the reason why I became the witness was because of my wife. It just dawned on me that I didn't really want to be away from her, like 10 years or whatever I was going to get. It took having to be locked up in a cell again for me to think that. So many different things went through my mind. It was the most difficult decision I think I ever made, was deciding to be the witness.
Comes on the telly and they brought this man out of one of them police vans with a blanket over his head. Though I couldn't see him, I knew it was my boy. I knew it was my boy. I just know that he couldn't do a thing like that. What reason would he have? My son wouldn't do that. I just know in my heart here, I know whether what our children have done and what they ain't done. I know when they're lying and when they're not lying, like all mothers do, don't they?
With Darren Nichols on remand awaiting the murder trial, his wife and children were moved by police into a safe house.
We were like prisoners. We couldn't go out. We had to rely on this policewoman to take me to the shops. And some days, she didn't turn up. We were just sat there in the house with a television on one sofa. My family weren't allowed to visit. Well, they couldn't. They didn't know where I was. I was scared. I didn't know what was going on. I had panic buttons and alarms all over the place, you know.
I was locked in an high security unit in Bedford at the time, but they shut it down and they turned it into a unit from Mara Hindley, and I got moved to the Isle of Wight, the old RIA unit, so I couldn't do anything. My wife's having breakdowns on the phone, and all I can do was sit there, and it got to the point where she said, if you don't come home in a week's time, I'm leaving you, and I'm going back to Essex.
They told me that we were in danger. They said that Mick and Jack had a lot of contacts in the underworld. Very dangerous people. They did tell me about the danger that we were in. And I said, well, at one point, I said, I want to go home. She said, you can't go home. If you do that, you'd be putting your children in danger. And then they could be taken into care. They could be taken away from you. So, that was that. I stayed put.
There needs to be a judgment involved with each case as to whether you go down this very expensive path of giving people fresh identities and relocating them. My experience is that these people are expected to live very frugally and eventually to be self-sufficient in their lifestyle.
They take your national insurance number away, they get rid of your driving licence, all your bank details are erased, they just banish you. And if I tell you my name's Fred Bloss, you believe me, you don't say, well, let me see your driving licence, Fred. I mean, I've got no documentation to say I'm someone different. I mean, I'm only acting as someone new. I'm not actually someone new until I'm sentenced.
With the murder trial over, and after a year in custody, Darren Nichols is now out on police bail. As a Supergrass, he's had to confess to all his previous crimes and will soon face sentencing himself for drug smuggling, possession of 10 kilos of cannabis, and supplying a firearm.
After my sentence, I should get, I suppose, an identity. I should get a driving licence, a passport, a national insurance number, help to open a bank account, because even as a fresh person with all of these things, you won't get a bank account because you've got no history, no previousness.
Jack Womes has now served 2.5 years of his life sentence. His leave to appeal will be heard in the High Court in 2 months.
Not a shred of evidence. Oh, there wasn't there a footprint in the snow, size 7. And was Jack 11? 12, yeah.
In the court, Darren Nichols saying that he'd dropped Jack off on the left-hand side of the road. He just stopped and he'd let him get out there, and Jack had to walk across the road to go down this lane, didn't he?
He didn't know if he went down the road left, that he went right, that he didn't know if he reversed in, turned round, spun round, did he?
He gets caught with 10 kilos, he's going to make a story. He's looking at 5 years.
I just can't see how he can get on with his life. I mean, I couldn't, like, to do what he's done, then just live a normal life. Mind you, I suppose, like, the money that he's got probably give him life a luxury, wouldn't it? I wouldn't be surprised if he's probably abroad somewhere, or if he's in this country, probably, my own opinion, is probably up north or Devon somewhere.
I've heard that I'm living in Spain in a villa and I'm being looked after by the police. I've heard other ones. I'm now in South Africa and I've got a bit of a suntan. And they think, you know, I'm definitely abroad. No one knows actually, do they? I mean, all they would do is speculate. The reality is nothing like that at all. They never give you a villa abroad or help you move. I mean, plus the fact is that most countries won't take you in because you are a criminal. Everything's a constant lie. You know it is. It's like I haven't got a job, you know. And I've been offered a few silly jobs, but I can't take them. I mean, you get the basic dole money, in my case, which is about £48 a week, and they find you somewhere to live, which they rent, and then you're expected to get on with your life.
I'm not going to try and underestimate the the difficulty of being relocated to a new area with a new identity. You know, that sounds very romantic. It sounds almost James Bondish. He can't have any great contact with close members of his family. He couldn't obviously go back to his own town or home environment and expect to, you know, drink in the local pub where he drank and mix with the friends that he had before the case.
I know he's innocent. I know Darren's a liar. I know that. I know my brother. You know, me and my brother have done everything over the years together. We've always been together. And if my brother was to go and do something like that, he wouldn't go with Darren Nichols. He would take one of his own member of the family. You don't go on a killing with a friend you've known for 2 years. You'll go with your brother, or your sister, or your cousin, your uncle. You know, he isn't known to go with, you know, a friend and take a criminal liar with you. Definitely not. I haven't showed me emotions yet for all what's gone on. I've held it in. It's something you learnt when you was in the prison system. You pick up the telephone, ring home, you're at home on the phone. Put the phone down, you're back in the system. I'm in the system now, I'm in the campaign system. So whatever goes on, it's all in my head. I'm holding it inside. On the day he comes out will be the day that I can relieve it all. But until that day, I'll keep it. I'll keep it with me. And that day gets nearer every day as we go on.
I mean, we all talk about it every day, about the situation he's in and all that, but we also talk about he's coming home.
You can meet someone, how can you tell them? Oh yeah, by the way, I'm a Supergrass. I mean, most people are supposed to hate people like me. How can I tell if they like me or hate me? There's a bounty on my head. I'm not sure how much it is. Someone says it's $250,000, someone says it's $500,000. But who's going to collect it? I mean, if someone topped me, where are they going to go to collect it? I wouldn't want to be the bloke knocking on someone's door. They say, oh yeah, it's up here by the railway lines. Come with me. I'm worried inside. It hurts me. I'm worried. I just can't say how I feel, I suppose. I mean, I even thought to myself, wouldn't it have been easier if I'd just topped myself and then nothing would have happened? Everyone would have carried on and I'd have been forgotten about in a fortnight. That would have cheered up too many people and I thought, fuck them.
I was told that I had to change my name, and it's something that Americans do, don't they? It's just so unreal. When you've been so-and-so for so long, and then to try and think of a new name for yourself, how do you tell the kids? Oh, we're changing our name, and it's why? Because, oh, we thought you know, we'd go and move away, we'll have a new name as well. It'll be all sort of exciting. Didn't want to believe that I was in danger of any kind. Don't know if I was. Don't know if I still am. Don't know if I'll ever... Don't know whether the children will be. I don't know. But I do know there are people out there, I mean, who will do anything for a few £100.
Darren Nichols' sentencing is imminent. He could still face a long stretch in prison.
The police told me to come prepared, to bring a bag, on the assumption that I might be going away. And they also said to me, they booked you a space in the Isle of Wight, in the Supergrass unit, which was very nice of them. That reassures me I'm not going away. It's quite a serious event from their point of view to get me to court alive, because the police feel they had actually told me, they feel this is the time to get me. Try not to think about it, really. If you think about it, you just start worrying about it, wouldn't you? So I try not to. I put it out of my mind until the day. Always very nervous, you know, upset stomachs and things. So I try not to think about it. I feel sorry for my wife more than anything. If I get to go down, well then she gets to be lonely. I mean, she's had a lot of doubts in me herself, and it's took a lot of effort for me to convince her that it's rubbish, and you know I told the truth. I mean, it's pretty hard for me, because even my wife doubts me.
This is the main time when it comes back to me with Jack, because Jack would be here. Jack would be in this position here, you know, with me. People look at it as if, oh, that's how they got that boat. Drugs, you know, importing drugs and, you know, in the criminal underworld. But we never got it like that. Every bit of this is bought and paid for on our overdraft. And unfortunately, I'm finishing paying for this while Jack's away, sort of thing. You and Mum just pull it apart.
Get a bit of air in it, yeah?
JJ, just lift the end up and it'll woof, and it'll be right across here like that.
Jack Womb's leave to appeal is now weeks away, and the family are trying to stir up public interest in the case.
Hold on. Go on.
On the 13th of November 1998, Darren Nichols was taken to Woolwich Crown Court for sentencing. It is now up to the judge to take into account his role as a supergrass and decide if he should go to prison for his own offences.
Fucking brilliant, yes, fucking brilliant moment, wasn't it? A big sigh of relief, and I just thought, excellent, there's no more. They've got no more hold over me, you know, and that moment was great.
Darren Nichols was given a 15-month sentence, but because he had served time on remand, he was allowed to go free.
The funny thing is, this great moment happened in my life, and when I got home, I couldn't tell anyone. Couldn't even go and have a drink. And be happy, sort of just, you know. No one knew it, apart from me. I just sort of had to wander around normally.
My advice to Darren Nichols is simple. Don't associate with past criminals. Don't trust too many members of your family, and generally never brag about your past, because there will always be someone prepared, if they knew the truth, to cause you some harm.
It's just a big relief that it's all over. Well, it's all over and we can just get on with it like everybody else. Live a normal life.
Just got to wait and see what happens for us now. You see, nothing's happened really, apart from I'm not going away.
That's all we've been waiting for, really, anyway.
Oh, yeah, I know, but we're still in limbo because I still haven't got a passport, driving licence. Still don't exist. Still can't do anything. Still waiting for it all to be sorted out.
Have a read of that. Have a read about this count of justice.
Yeah, free read, do you good for half time? Right, probably more interesting than the match.
I'll give you something to read while you're waiting for your burgers. It's regarding the Rettedham murders. The true story. Would you like one, dear?
Send to read it. Read any comments, tell us my number on the back, you will make any comments. Thanks for your time. Thank you.
That you, boys. The trial of the Range Rover murders.
I actually sat down once. I was a bit gutted to the fact that I'd fucked up a couple of families' lives. Like Jack Wombs' family. He's got children and all that. I have pains of conscience about it, you know. I often thought to myself, what would happen if I just said I lied and got them off? Nothing anyone could do. They'd just be let off and be compensated. And I actually thought that. I never do it, but I actually had it in my mind to think I could do that, you know. I could get them out of this trouble. Would they like me again?
I think it would be perhaps easier for me if he had committed a crime. You know, Because if he's done anything wrong, he's entitled to pay for it. They could show me one thing, that's the bit I can't understand. If they could show me one little bit of forensic. If he did do it, I would have said, well, you carry on. You've done it, you pay for it. If my son had done the murders, I'd still stand by him. I know I would. You can't just turn your back on your children. No mother can they?
I mean, Mick and Jack getting off can play on your mind. It plays on my mind. Because if they got off on an appeal, in the long term, I think they would have to find me. Because they wouldn't be happy until they kill me. Even if you don't think you're thinking about it, you know you are. I don't know how the appeal will go. I mean, assuming the fact that they're guilty. Obviously, I'd hope severely that it went the way I want it to go, and they don't get off.
Monday, January the 25th, 1999, and the Wombs family arrive at the High Court to hear Jack's leave to appeal.
Deep down, nervous and worried, but up here, confident.
Excited, I suppose. Confident. Just see if we get justice today.
It's a big day, one of the biggest days for the last 3-4 years. No forensics, there was no drugs, there was no money, there was no weapon.
Can't wait to get in there and see what the legal team do. And looking forward to coming out with a big grin on my face.
We'll just see if British justice, you know, can sort it out. If there is such a thing, I've lost a lot of faith there, but I'll go and face the music and get yourself sorted.
If I'm a big liar, I concocted the perfect story. I knew where 2 of my friends were on the night of the murder, and I think everyone should just look at the fact that 12 people consider me to be telling the truth, and they heard all of the evidence, and other people haven't heard all of the evidence. Not even I have heard all of the evidence. So it bugs me to think that people think I'm a big liar.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All because of one liar. One liar.
I just knew that it wasn't going to be. And just listening to all the points of appeal being rejected, all of them, is unreal. Absolutely unreal. I mean, Darren Nichols could laugh his head off today, he'll probably hear it on the news, but if he found out in time, that'll come out eventually.
I was, well, devastated to be quite honest. But I thought, well, I'm not going to let them beat me. I've got my boy to go and face in prison and tell him yet. And I think that would be 10 times worse than what's just happened in there, that we didn't stand a chance.
I don't need an imagination to guess what people think of me. You get the criminal side who think you're the biggest thing since sliced bread in the grass department, and on the other side of things, the police, you know you're the biggest witness they've ever had. I don't get drunk and think, oh right, what a good pub story. Look, I've grassed all my mates up. I don't think that's something you can be proud of or boast about. I've made myself more famous than the bloke grassed the craze up. I can live without that fame.